Well, good evening, wrestling fans, and welcome to the Double Eagle Clubhouse Grill for another edition of the Haggard Hershey Zelt High School Wrestling Weekly, hosted by the Double Eagle Clubhouse Grill. Rex Brewer along with Dane Fuelling for our Sunday night extravaganza. A couple of coaches in the building for some in-person interviews, and a call-in guest with a special secret guest that's calling in here after the weigh-in period's over. But other than that, Dane, what are we going to talk about tonight?
Well, of course, we've got football to talk about for, I guess, the final week. I'm sure we'll end up talking about football next week, but obviously, most importantly, we've seen some boys wrestling matches. We've seen some results. We've got some scores. We've got some upsets. How does that all play into what's going to happen over the next couple of weeks? We will see. You were at football on Friday, but I was lucky enough to really have the privilege, and I guess I didn't talk about it enough, but it really was a privilege for me to be able to call the match on Friday. I've never called a home Belmont wrestling match on the radio, so I was listening. I was really excited to do it, and I thought Kyle Lawson did a wonderful job, and I hope that we can bring him back on. And I saw him again on Saturday at the JV invite at Jay County, and he did a great job there, and such a good example of what wrestling can do for a kid and the places that it can take him. And he'd be the first one to admit that. So, Belmont comes out, lineup not what they wanted. They ended up with a forfeit in the lineup for various reasons. Still missing Sam Wolpert out of that lineup, and they come away with a 40-35 win over Wawasee. I think overall, talking to the coaching staff, take the win, move on. Not really anything else to say about it. There were some guys who made their debuts who looked good. There were some guys who made their debuts who looked like young varsity wrestlers that weren't quite ready. But overall, I think the team wrestled well. Tuesday will be a test. I don't know. Snyder, the roster that I saw from them had 50 or 55 guys on it. It's hard to kind of read through that and know what to expect from them. But I think that they will definitely be a different type of test than Wawasee was. And if Belmont can pass that test and head into Thanksgiving with that momentum of starting 2-0, I haven't even seen the list of teams who are going to be at Goshen on that Friday and Saturday, but Belmont's done well the last couple of years. That's where you really find out. Okay, some of these guys who are in, you can't really fault a freshman for getting pinned by a state qualifier in his first match. That doesn't really tell us anything about what he's going to be able to do. We did see some awesome things from Gabe Myers and Henry Ferrote both. Those two teamed up for a pair of Tech Falls, and one thing that we noticed real quick was, Kyle and I both talked about it, those Tech Falls are going to come so soon and so fast, Rex. Between Gabe and Henry, I don't think they were on the mat for more than 3 minutes between them. From a broadcasting standpoint, I think we're going to have to watch ourselves as far as spots being played and how soon some of these dual meets are going to go. And I actually had a conversation with Coach Ryan Landis from Adams Central, and he just shook his head when he asked me about how Friday night went. And I said, man, it was quick. I mean, it went quick because of this. And I know there were 2 forfeits, so it changed things a little bit. But, I think there's some programs that probably need to have some serious conversations about how can we take a varsity match and make it last longer than 45 minutes? I mean, give me another sport in high school that has a varsity contest that lasts less than 45 minutes. Because I don't know if you can find it. And I'm not really sure it benefits the sport if that's what it looks like. So I think there's going to be some things that maybe come out of this that maybe change things. And I know the late Paul Gunsett, when he was coach at Belmont, he kicked around the idea of a halftime, of a break, just a break for concessions, a scheduled break that you don't choose it. Wherever your starting weight is, you go 7 weights in, and you tell the other coach, listen, no matter who's got momentum, we're going to take a break. We're going to take a 10-minute break. Everybody can go to the bathroom. Everybody can get a popcorn. Radio can do their ads, and we can come back to it. It doesn't seem natural, but I think it may be something that some programs look at doing.
Tim has carried some of that out, and Tim has done a little bit of that where you have it's kind of the Big Ten feel, because Big Ten does that where they'll bring those guys out and they get about partway through, and then they change up a little bit and take that break. And he's had some presentations, and they've done some little games or something to try and extend it out a little bit. But I think you're right. You don't want to bring everybody in there for a 45-minute wrestle match and then clear the place out.
Well, and, Friday was a little bit different. Wawasee's coming from a long ways away. They probably had some guys who were planning on wrestling in a Saturday event. They only had 3 JV matches, right? So that was done in 10 minutes, and then they had 20 minutes of warm-ups, and then it was a 45-minute match, and it was over. That was it. That was all there was. So I know we've been struggling on the radio side of things with some girls basketball broadcasts because they're only playing 2 quarters, or there is no JV game, and these are things that high schools are kind of struggling with, athletic departments are struggling with, because honestly, and I see Ben Froat in the house, that the time that it took for people to clear out from the gym after the final whistle probably equaled the entire length of the dual meet before it. And you know how Belmont people are. They like to linger. They like to talk. They like to shake hands and tell stories. But that was one of the things that stuck with me from that very first opening dual meet was, man, did it get over quick. And I was talking to Coach McClurg, who's going to be on later in the show. And, tech falls are going to be tech falls. And most of them, it's not going to matter how you score it. Eventually, that kid's that much better. And if he's not going to get the fall, he's going to get there. But I do think that you're going to see more falls because more and more kids are going to be down 10 points, 12 points, 13 points quicker than they've ever been before. And I think that's going to lead to some quicker falls because, let's be honest, it's human to, once you're down 10 points or 12 points or 13 or 14, to lose hope and to give up. And I think, when you used to be down 6 or 7 points going into the third period, you were still trying to keep it to it. But I mean, with some of the scoring rules here, it's going to change things drastically.
Well, we saw a little bit of that in the downtown Madison Street Plaza rumble in the streets with Landon Rich. Got caught in a headlock, and he's down 7 points to Isaiah Herman, and he had to really battle back because battling back from 3 or 4 points one thing, but you're down 7-0. I mean, that's big, and he battle back, and it will change maybe that intestinal fortitude of those guys to determine, how bad do I want to be in this match still.
For sure. On the plus side, obviously Belmont won on Friday. That was the plus. But on another positive side, I thought that the crowd was really good on Friday night. I thought that Coach Myers did a nice job of getting people to understand what's coming up in the year ahead for Belmont with some of the special nights that they had. There were a lot of young kids out there. And really, when it comes down to it, that's what it's all about. I know Sean Froat and I talk all the time about the guys who were maybe 6 or 7 years older than you that just walked on water, right? And those are the kinds of – you need to find those kids who are 6 or 7 years younger than the stars that you have today so that they can watch them wrestle and want to emulate them. And by creating home dual meets – where there's an opportunity to come and watch them and put them on display, I think that's what you have to do to be able to grow a program and to get kids to want to be in that spotlight.
Yeah, I agree. So we've reached the end of the weigh-in section. Let's send it back to the studio for a round of commercials to Steve Rouse running a board for us as he usually does. Here on Sunday night, we're back with more wrestling talk here on WZBD.
Does your smile need work? Maybe it's time for a cleaning and exam. Visit Laura Kugelhahn, DDS, and her knowledgeable, caring staff at Complete Smiles on North Main Street in Bluffton. Dr. Kugelhahn would love to help you maintain your dental health or transform your smile. Whatever your needs might be, Complete Smiles is there to help you. Dr. Kugelhahn is currently accepting new patients. Call 824-3100 to schedule an appointment.
The staff at Haggard, Hershey, and Zelt Funeral Home is honored to serve the community we love and live in. Locally owned and operated by Ryan Hershey and Eric Zelt, we understand that each family we serve and each life lived tells a unique story. Our goal is to offer comfort, care, and dignity to all who entrust their loved ones to our care. We are proud to call Adams County our home and look forward to serving you for generations to come.
Welcome back to the Haggard Hershey Zelt High School Wrestling Weekly, hosted by the Double Eagle Clubhouse Grill. Dane, I see on here a live read, and usually we just talk about the food here at the Double Eagle Clubhouse Grill, and I went back to my old standby faithful, the Cuban. You back to your go-to now, the turkey melt.
Well, I know I had the nachos last week,
Yep.
and they were great, but I had nachos earlier this weekend, so I decided to go back to the turkey melt, and it did not disappoint. And, of course, they put those tots in the fryer.
Yeah. We talked Wade's dad into going to the turkey melt thing. Seeing how Thanksgiving's just around the corner, and he said it was a win. So,
yeah, and the food at the Double Eagle is great. And if you aren't paying attention to some of the things that they have coming up over the holidays, they got some really great things around Christmas and New Year's, and they do a great meal somewhere around New Year's Eve with steak and some extra great food, and definitely worth checking out. Follow them on Facebook, and come in and have a good meal. I just got a text. I'm interested. Those of you who are listening and are coaches, it sounds like the winter bulletin is finally out for the IHSAA, and I've been informed that my Friday in Goshen, not this coming Friday in Goshen, I get to spend 2 Fridays in Goshen this year. How lucky was I? Actually, it's only going to be 1 Friday because apparently some things have changed, and apparently I'm heading to Alexandria for the girls' regional on January 10th. So
Okay.
we'll have to check that out. So if you're a coach or if you're just an avid wrestling fan, check out the IHSAA website like I'm going to do right now and find out what kind of tidbits are in there, both for the girls' wrestling and the boys' wrestling. It didn't look like they made anything quite public. But if it's out there and people are talking about it, it's probably available for you on ihsaa.org. And always interesting to see what they put on there as far as some of the rules and timing. And they verify on there who's hosting what. And, of course, for the girls wrestling, there's a lot of just sort of things that we haven't been prepared for because we haven't really gotten answers from Robert. We talked to him in the very first show of the year. Talked about a team tournament. He wasn't really ready to commit to that, even though we had heard some rumblings from some other people that was a done deal and was ready to go. We will find out. So,
well, on the schedule here tonight, you have upcoming events, and I can tell you that this Friday I will be at Lucas Oil Stadium for the 5th year in a row, watching another Adams County team play. And we had the opportunity to watch 2 Adams County teams, but I guess that North Judson team's just a little bit more powerhouse than the Southam Starfires could have. But on the way home, I texted Coach Mosier and I told him he had a great season, and it ended way better than I think his season started out for him, and he just had a great end of the season.
And I was busy doing my broadcast, and you were doing your broadcast, but I finally when I got back into the car, I flipped you on, and you were struggling with your broadcast issues, but you were on the phone, and you were a trooper for doing it. I flipped over to the YouTube on my phone, and I think it was still 0-0 in that second quarter.
Yeah.
And South Adams looked like they were holding their own. Then all of a sudden, it was kind of like South Adams had done to a couple teams in the last couple of weeks. Touchdown, turnover, touchdown. I don't know if there's an onside kick over in there somewhere, but there was maybe another turnover, and it was like 3 touchdowns in the matter of 4 minutes. And as we talked about last week, North Judson is the kind of team that you got to stay ahead of.
Yeah.
And if they build a lead, it's just like Adams Central. So,
well, I tell you what, Lou and I went a long way to go to some very not so ideal facilities. The field was crap. They had 3 inches of snow. They took a snow plow and plowed the snow off the field, and then they come back and they filled it with sand, and then they just kind of box graded the sand around on it, and it was still mushy and squishy, and the AC guys complained that the locker rooms were not that nice, but they put us in a press box by ourselves. We were in a visitor side press box with the Adams Central coaching staff, and I mean, we were out of the weather. We weren't outside, but then it was not a super cold night anyways. I mean, the wind died down and it wasn't horrible, but I tell you what, that Adams Central team, once they get rolling, they start wearing people down, and that Andrean team had some kids that were just really big physical kids. They got a couple of D1 recruits on that team. They got a kid that is just a junior, and he was 6'6", 320, and he very much stood out on the field. He was just a big human. But I'll tell you what, those Adams Central kids just fight hard. And having a conversation with Coach Johnny Hammond, the DC, he said that from watching film of Linton Stockton, they very much resemble Adams Central. They're not very big. They're kind of fast, and they said they just play hard.
Well, it has become kind of an annual rite for us, for those of us who have been to Goshen each of the last 3 years that we've gone up there to tune in and watch Adams Central from the bleachers as we watch the wrestling, because that's the way that it's been. So but we wish Adams Central all the best of luck. We talked to Coach Curry last week, and I know there's probably some ACAC coaches sitting out there right now thinking, we might be able to get our chance at AC in the Adams Central or the ACAC duels, as that is probably going to be their very first varsity action that Friday night. And that Saturday, because they don't wrestle on Friday night. We keep forgetting about that. But we're going to call in a special guest here. We're going to talk a little bit more about Fort Wayne wrestling. Let's see if we can get him on the air here. We'll see if he answers.
Hello?
Hey, is this the General?
Yes, it is.
This is Rex and Dane on Hager Hershey's High School Wrestling Weekly. How you doing, Heavy?
Doing good.
We are here at the Double Eagle, just packed. There must be 100 people here tonight, and waiting to hear. And they were all surprised and excited about the call-in guest from Heavy Hands. So it's a good night for you, Heavy.
Oh yeah, it's a good night.
Well, we had your one of your friends on our show a couple weeks ago, and we were really surprised they didn't bring you with you. What was up with that?
Yeah, I think he didn't want to give up any luster or shine that night. I don't know if you guys know this, but I've known DeJuan since the day he was born, and we've been debating since he was 4 about wrestling. So sometimes I kind of I show him up a little bit because I got a little seniority on it.
Well, he certainly has his work cut out for him at Wayne, but we wish him the best of luck. And it was certainly an eye-opening conversation for us on the show to hear him talk about taking over a new program, not being in the building, having 2 or 3 weeks before the first practice, and trying to gather together a coaching staff and a support group and all of these things to get ready for the season. And kudos to him for taking on that big challenge.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's kind of a full circle moment for me. My mentor was Will Regal Sr., and he was the head coach at Wayne for, I believe, a couple of decades. And then Will Regal I wrestled with and was, not roommates, but, classmates with at Manchester College. And my son graduated from Wayne. I used to coach several kids, actually dozens, from Wayne High School. So I'm kind of really happy about this. So
when I refereed a lot at Wayne, Willie was wrestling, and I always thought Willie had the best flat top in the game. He had that clean, crisp flat top. And I was talking to John when he was here last week. I said, you need to go back and get my brothers from another mother, the Slammer, get Doug and Derek Brewer out to help him bring that program back, because the Brewer boys, one was a little bit younger than me and one was younger than that. But I tell you what, the Brewer boys put a name on Wayne Wrestling High School.
Yeah, they're the GOATs. Yeah, wasn't one of them named Ronnie Brewer?
I knew Doug and Derek. I knew the Slammer. Doug and Derek were the two I knew.
Okay. But yeah, one was that Doug or Derek got a second and a third?
Derek was the older one and Doug was the younger one, I believe.
Okay. Well, there's a Brewer that went to Wayne that got a second and a third.
Yeah.
And that, obviously, one of those brothers right there.
Well, General, we are headed to Snyder on Tuesday night. WZBD's microphones will be there, and I've seen a couple of things from the Panthers, a big roster on track wrestling, looking through some of the guys that they have in the room. What can you tell us about what you know about Snyder and what we'll see on Tuesday night?
Well, Snyder's in kind of a different position. You know, this would be typically a down year. We had 3 state qualifiers graduate last year. But, man, this is actually the largest team that I've ever seen at Snyder in my 36 years around the program. There's 80 wrestlers in that room.
That's a wild number. What do you do with that many guys?
Well, you got to kind of split practice.
It would be interesting to see what kind of lineup they put out and how many JV guys they are able to put together. I know it's a JV tournament on Saturday, and that's one of the big challenges for a coaching staff, especially one like a Carroll or a Jay County that's got a lot of numbers and a lot of guys out there, is trying to find ways to get those guys matches. I know Carroll brought some guys to Jay County on Saturday that I think they weighed in. They were healthy. They were ready to go. They made their weight, and they didn't get a match. So that's a big challenge for the Snyder coaching staff to be able to manage a roster that size.
Snyder was able to take 52 JV kids to West Noble this weekend.
So heavy. I was on Indiana Mat, and I pulled up the Wayne Generals, and Doug Brewer graduated in 83. He was third at 105 and then second at 112. So that was Doug that was the place winner.
Yeah, he's actually the GOAT, right ahead of Ton. Ton's got a 2nd and a 5, but Brewer's got a 2 and a 3.
Well, General, we are headed into Thanksgiving, and that really ushers in the start of the full high school wrestling season in Indiana. What are you looking forward to this week and next?
Well, I'm definitely going to Belmont and Snyder. I'll be front and center there. I'm pretty excited to see young Meyer and a couple of the young guys that haven't been able to make the lineup at Snyder get in there and see what they can do. I want to see what these seniors have to offer. Should be several good matchups.
Can we count you in as a pre-match guest on our YouTube broadcast on Tuesday?
Absolutely.
Well, we'll look forward to that for sure. Anything else that you're attending after Thanksgiving?
Well, my plan is always to go to the Al, and I'll go to the Mike Esther for sure.
And what's the date for the Mike Esther this year? Do you know?
I don't know, but it's usually somewhere right before Christmas break, somewhere in between the Henry Wilk and the Al Smith. I'll be going to Henry Wilk too, but.
And that's become a really good tournament. I know I was there a couple of years ago when Belmont was there, I think for just 1 year. But they've done a nice job of bringing in some schools from Ohio, from Michigan, and just really trying to make sure that they bring in some teams who are serious about dual meets and wrestling in that kind of format.
Oh, yeah. Last year they brought along Columbus North and New Palestine, and they were pretty tough. And you already have Mishawaka and Penn there. So, it was kind of a rough day for us, an eye-opening day.
Well, General, we always thank you for calling into the show, and we look forward to seeing you on Tuesday up at Snyder. You are welcome to join us on our pre-match show on the YouTube channel, and you're always welcome here at the Double Eagle.
All right. You guys have always welcomed me in. I listen on YouTube, and I try to catch every episode if I can.
We appreciate it, and take care and have a good rest of your weekend.
All right, Rex and Dane.
That was heavy. And, Dane, we were talking about tournaments that are named after people. I saw a lot of airplay over Facebook last weekend where Sarah Hildebrand was in the building for the Sarah Hildebrand Invitational Tournament, and that tournament was huge. There was like 300 and some girls there, and I saw some pictures of it, and she posted some stuff on Instagram. And I tell you what, she just was like on the moon because she basically has a tournament named after her, and she is very well deserving of it.
Very cool, and I know looking through some of the results and it's definitely added another element for this show, because you used to be able to go on to Track Wrestling and find everything that you needed to know about what happened over the weekend, and now the girls' results are being found on a different website from Track, and it's kind of hard to lump them all in together and to browse through them. I'm taking a look at this winter bulletin, and I think we could do an entire show on what the IHSAA has changed in this set. But maybe I'll have to have some time to process this over one of the breaks and talk about it later in the show. The biggest change that I'm seeing is that they are sending our local girls, that would be Jay County and some other local schools, Muncie Central, Cowan, Monroe Central, some girls that we've really followed a lot, Westdell. We've interviewed all of those girls. All of those girls are not going north with New Haven up to the Goshen or Rochester Regional. Instead, they're going to Alexandria and wrestling against the Indianapolis schools. So there's some things to unpack there. We'll take a look at it more here throughout the show.
So as we end our first period A, let's make our way to first period B. We'll be back with more information about the Belmont Wawa C match. You listen to High School Wrestling here on WZBD.
Shop local. It's a phrase we hear all the time, but for the staff and family at Package Liquors, it means something extra. Package, with locations in Decatur, Monroe, Berne, and Markle, is a local family-owned business that has been serving local communities for decades. We take your support and patronage and return it by supporting local athletes on WZBD and donating to different organizations across Adams County. The next time you're deciding where to shop, shop local. Shop at Package. It's where your friends shop.
Renowned around the Midwest for his skills and his creative abilities, Nate Bowers and the team at Bowers Paint Studio in Decatur work with a wide range of clients, from collision repair to custom paint jobs for classic cars and motorcycles. Located on Monroe Street on the west side of Decatur, Bowers is your place for body work too, whether it's getting your ride back on the road or finally getting that classic car, the paint job you've always wanted. Stop by or give Nate a call to put the best in the business to work for you.
Welcome back once again to the Hager Hershey High School Wrestling Weekly, hosted by the Double Eagle Clubhouse Grill. And we've got a couple of new guests that have made their way into this crowded room here tonight. Problem is, Dane, we only have big crowds when somebody in the Belmont wrestling community passes away. We need big crowds out here on happy occasions, not sad occasions.
This is true. We'll get there. I know for most people, Friday night was the very first duel of the year. Everybody kind of trying to get an idea of what this Belmont team looks like. I think Tuesday will offer us a little bit of a look, but I don't think we're going to learn a whole lot. But I do think that when we get to Friday and Saturday, we'll have the opportunity to take a look at some of these freshmen, some of these new guys into the lineup, and really say, okay, after 12 matches, are we looking at a 10-2 guy? Are we looking at a 6-6 guy? Or are we looking at a guy who might be challenged by one of those guys who lost one of those early wrestle-offs? And I think, too, this Belmont lineup, I don't think is set as far as weights, and I think you're going to see some guys drop later on in the year. It will be interesting to see if we get some information from Goshen here in the next couple of days as to who is in that tournament and what those challenges look like, because the last couple of years, Belmont's gone 10-0 across those 2 days, and I would love to see some of those teams that have challenged Belmont in the last couple of years come back and continue. I know last year it was Garrett's B team that was there. We didn't get to see Garrett. Goshen offered Belmont a good duel. There was a good duel a couple of years ago against Glenn, but then they went away. Belmont wrestled Chesterton really well last year, I think it was, or maybe it was 2 years ago, and then they went away. So, and we talk about this every year when we're in the November shows and even in the December shows with head coaches. There's always that balance in building a schedule. You don't want to get your kids beat up and down about the season, but you also don't want to get into a situation where you're beating teams by 40, 50, 60 points each weekend, and you've built yourself up to 12-0 or 15-0, but you haven't really seen anybody yet. Yeah. And then all of a sudden the season gets so much tougher. There's got to be a medium in there to start your year.
Well, now that you and I have pushed and we've got some new equipment and we have the the ability and that technology. I was listening to you on 92.7 through the computer while I was getting ready for the game up there. And how much of the match did you get? I couldn't keep on. I was trying to. How much of the match did you get in before they switched over and took us up to Andrean?
I don't know, because I didn't really get a notice from them. I know it was about 7:40. There were some varsity matches that got in. I do have, for those who are listening and are Belmont fans specifically, we did finally get edited out the interviews with Coach Myers, with Henry Farreau, and a couple of other people. I didn't get a chance to add those back into the story, but we will have those up today. If you missed those, if you were one of those people shaking hands and kissing babies in the gym afterwards while that was going on and you didn't get out to your car in time, that's, I was telling you that was really the first match that I've done, a true Belmont home match, being in charge of the broadcast. I'm used to getting in my car and getting out there, and my kids know when they come to the match, you don't talk on the way home. You listen to what Coach has to say in the interview on the way home, and then that's it. You don't talk about the match until you get there. So, and
there was nobody on the radio when we were on the way home.
I know
it was you.
I know that a lot of people want to hear that and hear what Coach Myers has to say. So that's one of the great things about the website, is that you do have the opportunity. When you used to not be able to, you had to be present to hear it. Now all of a sudden, all of those things are archived, and we certainly look forward to all of our interviews. And we had a great interview with Coach Salazar in the pre-match. I got a real kick out of him. Wrestling coaches and wrestling fans and wrestlers never forget, right? And Coach Salazar loved him to death. I knew that he was going to mention that he was on the team that beat Belmont in Belmont's gym in 1997.
Team semi-state.
And it took about 90 seconds, and he said, well, I was here on the team that beat Belmont in this gym. And I thought, you know what? I appreciate that about people in this sport, is there are still things that stick in our minds, and we're not gonna forget them.
Not very many teams beat Belmont in those team regionals, team semi-states. So if you did, you better brag about it, because there's not a lot of it. That group is a small group of people.
One thing that I thought was interesting with Coach Salazar, he was talking about where they were in the season, where they were development-wise, weight management-wise, sort of building a lineup. He mentioned that they have a new emphasis on nutrition and weight management. And he mentioned, and I have to go back and listen to the broadcast again, that they've actually brought in someone as a specific nutrition specialist for the team to talk to each kid. And I know a couple people were talking last week about how much Ike and Keegan are loving it at Purdue, and one of the things that they talked about was the weight training aspect of it and the nutrition aspect of it is someone who's analyzing every calorie that you intake. God forbid they'd ever look at what you and I intake on a week going through WCBD. But anyways, what I was saying was I was really surprised to hear a high school coach say that they were going that route now. Coach Myers has his boys on Wednesdays. They go through mindset training. They have somebody who comes in. They have a program that they aspire to that talks about being of the right mindset. Like, they sit down in a classroom and they talk about, what's my attitude? What are my fears? What am I thinking as I'm going into a match and approaching it? And that's not something that was around 10 or 15 years ago.
We can ask these coaches out here what percentage is physical of wrestling, what percentage is mental, and that mental aspect is way on the heavy side. It always was for me. Wrestling the matches wasn't a big thing. Cutting weight, making weight, getting there, and being in the right mindset sometimes was not good. And my junior year, I struggled. I had some issues there, and had to get my mind right. But one thing, before we get off the football topic, Dane, one thing that really kind of set me kind of weird is when Lou and I got to Maryville, it was 4:30 their time, and it was pitch black. It was pitch black at 4:30 in the afternoon.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't realize that about, it's really all winter sports. It's not really specific to wrestling, but these kids who put in their time during the winter, when they show up to school in the morning, it's dark. When school's over, they go straight to practice, and when practice is over, it's dark. That's it. They don't see it. And there's not
unless you have a classroom with a window, you don't see daylight
And
for about 3 months.
At Belmont, with some of the blinds and some of the placement of the classrooms, you don't see a whole lot of daylight. So, yeah, that is definitely interesting. So
Now, one thing I kind of segue back to listening to the match. I did hear enough of the match that I listened to Kyle, and I thought Kyle Lawson did a great job filling in, and really is one of the guys I think is a young talent that we need to put some emphasis on and get on there as much as we possibly can.
Yeah, I loved it, and he did a great job. And, he's so thorough with his knowledge of the rules. And, he probably has an advantage when you think about some of the older guys like you who, you lived and you breathed some of those old rules for so long that they stick with you. And whereas for him, some of those newer rules and like the out of bounds rules, like he understands those, I think, as good as anybody because he never really had the old ones ingrained into him. But he really does have a great understanding of the rule book for somebody his age and with his experience level. And he did a great job.
Like I was talking with Tony Curry last week, and I said when Tony was wrestling, he would have had a 2-point reversal, but the rule wasn't in place. And a lot of people kind of looked and it's like, what do you mean no 2-point reversal? Standing reversal did not used to be a rule. I mean, if you got behind a guy, you had to return him to the mat and get touch points down to get the get the reversal. There was no such thing as a standing reversal. That was put in maybe 5-6 years after that match.
And we saw it on Saturday, I think, on 2 different occasions, and Kyle was the official on both of them. And I got a kick out of Sean Farrote because he was ready to call Kyle on it if he didn't announce it, right? And he did. He called it both times. He said, standing reversal, 2 points. And the match went on. But, there's some things this year that for the casual fan especially, they're going to have to get used to when they're observing these matches, and even when you're listening at home and trying to keep track, okay, how close is this match, what still needs to happen, all of that has changed with these new rules.
Well, our sponsors are going to have to understand you need to listen to the first part of the match because we may play 40 commercials before the match starts. If somebody gives us an intermission.
That's a great thing about what we have at WZBD is we do have a wealth of contacts and information and previous interviews with coaches where our pre-match coverage, I think, is fairly important to the broadcast and worth considering because there is a lot of information to know as far as context when it comes to understanding what this dual meet means, what the matchups are, what the possible bumps are, all of those things all come into play a lot more perhaps than maybe a basketball or a football game.
Yeah, so that's great. But, one thing, the girls' basketball team, they have Taco Tuesday. I don't know if the wrestling team's going to have Taco Tuesday or not.
That would probably be a bad idea.
Several different of the Mexican restaurants in town have donated tacos, and I've been to a couple of girls' basketball games. I tell you what, that is a great episode.
I have noticed that your attendance at girls' basketball games has mirrored the giveaway nights for tacos.
I walk in the first night, and I win the 50-50 pot. So it paid off to go that night.
You're just lucky. I don't know how you do it. You won the golf cart over the summer.
Yeah. And I sold it to a guy who was supposed to be here tonight. The guy that I sold it to is supposed to be here tonight, and he's not here. He's not in Orlando for a change, but he should be here. So with that, let's break this down as we get ready to finish off first period B, and we'll come back with second period A. And our next guest, you've been listening to Hager Hershey-Zelt High School Wrestling Weekly here on WZBD.
Based out of the Indiana Tech Wrestling Facility, the Warrior Regional Training Center is an elite training center for youth wrestlers, high school wrestlers, and college and senior level athletes. Featuring a college coaching staff with a strong history of developing talent and producing results, Warrior RTC will give any wrestler quality training partners to push them to new levels in the state-of-the-art 25,000 square foot wrestling building. The training is affordable and private training is also available. Put Warrior RTC in your corner this season.
The 2025 Legend, the latest volume of the Belmont High School Yearbook, is on sale for a discounted price this month. Visit yearbookforever.com and buy a copy for your Belmont student for $50. This special sale price will expire at the end of November. That's yearbookforever.com to purchase your 2025 Legend, the Belmont High School Yearbook.
Welcome back to the Hager Hershey-Zelt High School Wrestling Weekly, hosted by the Double Eagle Clubhouse Grill, and now we're joined by the coach of the Indiana Tech Warriors, or just Warrior RTC. I mean, I got a new shirt. I don't know what his. He's got so many titles. I don't know which one to call him.
Now,
but,
I will tell you, orange is my favorite color. So this is like an early Christmas present for me. I will gain all kinds of points when I wear this to school on Tuesday, casual Tuesday.
If you're farming you're farming and fall off the tractor, they can find a body easier that way.
A little easier.
Yeah.
Yeah, orange is awesome. He's got to
I love orange.
Embrace it.
Orange is good.
Well, Coach, welcome back to the show this year, and we appreciate your support and Indiana Tech's support of what we do, and we certainly enjoy following along with not only what happens at Indiana Tech, but really following what you're doing at Warrior RTC, and just listening to some of the boys and the girls talk about the experiences that they have about going to, whether they call it Warrior, whether they call it Warrior RTC, whether they call it Sundays with Wade, whatever it is that they call it. I know that a lot of kids really enjoy going up there and spending time in your program.
Yeah, we are growing. The club is growing, and it's just it's been great. I think just to get all the kids in the area, in the Northeast Indiana area, and really Michigan, Ohio. We got a really good group of kids that come in and train with us in the off season, and it's been cool to watch everybody grow and develop and get better. So yeah, it's been fun. I'm excited to watch a lot of these kids, boys and girls, this season and see how they do.
That's kind of a little segue. I mean, what kind of pride do you have for the Warrior RTC when you see a kid like Doster go through and make a good run for the state tournament last year?
Yeah, it was great to watch. We had Chase, Leach, and Easton both spent a lot of time in our club and win state titles, first for their schools in the history. So, yeah, I would like to think that we played a small part in it. The environment that we have at Tech is pretty unique. Those guys specifically get to train with our college team in the off season and get surrounded by great coaches and partners. So, yeah, so the environment I think at Tech has definitely helped those guys. Easton specifically, talking about Easton. Raise his level, and I think Easton would probably say the same thing. So, but Easton's been a blessing. Easton's also been just a great leader and role model for all the kids in our club.
And I think what we heard from Coach Lynn a couple of weeks ago was he's just sort of a magnet. He's a kid who other kids his age look up to him and are like, I want to spend more time around guys like that who are positive, who make me a better person. A better student, a better athlete, and push me. And whether it's at New Haven or whether it's at Warrior, he's such a huge asset. And he's another one of those guys who, and like, I don't know if you've experienced this, and maybe this is just a Decatur thing because of Ike and with those who have followed him, but like Big Ten wrestling as a discussion point amongst the average sports fan. I mean, there's people around here who are knowledgeable about who is there and who is where and following these guys. And he's another guy who people around here are going to watch Big Ten wrestling just because there's a match between, Easton and whoever else are wrestling on a Friday night. People are watching those. And I think that's great for the sport, but also for those college programs and gaining relevance and it's not just followers on social media and retweets, but actual people who are watching the matches and care and are trying to find ways to make them. I had a couple of friends over a couple weeks ago, and they were like, man, we need to go watch Ike. And we started looking through the schedule for Purdue, and Rex and I have a pretty busy schedule, but we found a Sunday where they wrestle in Columbus, and we're like, you know what? Let's go. Let's go in the afternoon. Let's go watch them. And I think a lot of people from this area of the state are following Big Ten wrestling like they never have before. Yeah,
it's definitely when you have someone and you can relate to it, and it makes it a lot more. Like I know I don't pay too much attention to Purdue wrestling, but that Ike's on the roster, I pay attention to it, and I think it'll be the same thing with Rutgers. I don't know a whole lot about Rutgers team because I'm busy trying to worry about our division at Tech and NAIA, But yeah, now I'm going to be super involved in trying to watch and follow Easton, and it's great. I'm super pumped, like just for Easton, and like you said, and Ike was the same way. Those kids are always smiling. They attract people that want to be around them and be like them. They're just good role models. And they raise the level. When Easton's in the room, the level gets raised. This afternoon, he came in and got a workout on with one of our college guys, and then he stayed and helped at our youth practice. It's just who he is, and so he's awesome.
So let's dive in a little bit more to Warrior RTC.
Yeah.
For those who aren't avid listeners or are maybe casual fans, who are you training? What kind of schedule does that look like, and how does somebody get involved?
Yeah, in the off season. So right now we're in season, and with the IHSA rules, we're not allowed to have high school workouts because kids from a different high school can't work out with a kid from another high school.
Okay.
Those rules. So during the season, we just kind of do individual private workouts with high school kids that's within the rules. And then right now we just have K through 8. We practice on Sundays and Tuesdays at our wrestling facility off of Tillman Road on the south side of Fort Wayne. And we have about 30 to 40 youth kids in there, scrapping, getting better. And then when we get to March, all the way up until high school season starts, we will go. The schedule is going to change this spring and summer because we're growing so much. But we'll have girl-specific practices, boys-specific practices, youth-specific practices. We'll go 3 or 4 nights a week. So
see, now I didn't realize you guys had a facility out on Tillman Road because that track facility, and is there a baseball diamond or a softball diamond out there?
There's a softball diamond, a track, and then our wrestling room is
that
down
is
there
phenomenal.
Too.
That whole area, I go by it all the time in Tillman, and I mean, what they built up out there and half of what the old golf course was. I mean, it's just amazing facilities out there.
Yeah, we're super fortunate. I would say we have Division I wrestling facilities at the NAIA level. So, and it's really cool. We get to expose, the community gets to use it too through our club. So kids get to see it and take advantage of all the things that we have. So.
Now talk about a little bit about Indiana Tech wrestling and the boys and the girls teams this year. What are their expectations, and what are maybe some opportunities for those who are becoming more of Big Ten wrestling fans to see some college wrestling a little bit closer to home?
Yeah, we have the girls team right now is ranked 5th in the country. The rankings just came out on Thursday. I think they have 12 individuals ranked. So in the NAIA, we have 10 weight classes in college, but we can wrestle. You can double up in weight classes, so you can enter 12 athletes. So the men's team is ranked 7th in the country. We have 12 athletes ranked. So our teams are doing really well. We are just finishing the first month of our competition season. The women's team dueled Rochester on Friday, and then the men's team dueled Rochester right after. We kind of went back to back at home on Friday. We have another home event. We dueled Cleary at home in December here. I want to say it's December 10th. I might be off on that date, but it's like the second week of December. We host Cleary, and then that's really our last home event actually for the season. We're on the road a lot this year.
One thing that I've noticed is you guys are really short on sort of home events and opportunities to see your kids wrestle, and that's hard, but it's also a product of there not being a whole lot of wrestling programs in the country, and they're split up into different divisions, and you kind of have to go where the opponents are, and sometimes, even though there are a lot of programs in the Midwest, it's still, for a lot of people, a 2 or 3 hour drive. Yeah. I know I talked to Spencer Litchfield last week sometime, and he mentioned he was headed to Milwaukee to watch Dobie, I think, and they were wrestling there. So, but, with the advent of social media and with streaming and all those types of things, it definitely has become easier to follow teams, and if you're interested in following these athletes after they leave high school, by all means jump on your whatever social media platform that you use. Every one of them has an account where you can follow Indiana Tech Wrestling, and you don't need to go out looking for the information all the time. If you just follow them, you can find schedules and updates and rankings, and you do some really cool things Indiana Tech does with the photos and all of those types of things. You make Andrea's biceps look about the size of Rex's thighs over here. But
she's tough. Hopefully she can stay healthy and put a good season together. I think she's ranked 4th in the country right now. our women's team. But you were at like expectations. The men's team. I can speak for the men's team because I'm on the staff there. But we definitely, we want to be the best, and we're really just process driven, and it's a long season. And we'll just kind of see how it goes. We like where we're at right now, but we got a long way to go. We got to keep getting better. And I know Paul would say the same thing about the women's team. But we're on track.
So Wade, you touched on the girls program there.
Yeah.
I know that since IHSAA is sanctioned for women's, the girls teams have started coming on. In the last couple of years, I've seen so many women's teams, not just this area, but the whole country. That has just exploded. Women's college wrestling is, as soon as Iowa got a team, everybody wanted a team. But Indiana Tech had that. Tryon had that. Manchester started a program this year. You guys wrestled at Albion. Most people didn't know where Albion was. I had a kid who spent 2 years at Albion. I know exactly where it was. But how many of those schools have really brought on women's programs in the last couple of years?
Yeah, in our division, the NAIA, it's the fastest growing division for girls wrestling, and I think that is because, and it's growing fast at the D3 and the D2 schools too, and it's because they're small, but usually smaller private universities, tuition-driven schools, tuition enrollment-driven schools. So for us, and I think for a lot of schools, it's easy to add the women because they already have a men's team, or it's a good excuse if they don't have men's wrestling, to add women's and men's, and so with the whole Title IX stuff, so it works out really well. But yeah, it's growing like crazy. It is exciting, and it's a good thing for our sport.
And you've probably seen that caliber of wrestling go right up with the attendance because 6, 8, 10 years ago when Dana and I go to McConaughey, there's just a lot of rolling around. But I tell you what, these girls are highly skilled, highly technical, and you can watch some great wrestling matches.
Yeah, it's definitely, the level has definitely changed, I would agree. Because the girls is only freestyle, and so you would see a girl get a takedown and run a wrist half on top instead of an ankle lace or a gut wrench, we were just watching our girls wrestle Rochester before our duel last on Friday night, and you didn't see any of that anymore. You just higher level techniques are being done, and it's just because the girls have been wrestling at an earlier age now. So it's just going to keep getting better, and opportunities. Like I can just speak from our club at Warrior. When we first started the club, there was like 1 or 2 girls, and now we have to have a girls' practice. You know what I mean? So it's cool. It's cool. It's a great thing.
Well, one thing that we've talked about this year especially is seems like there's an emphasis on the girls' side of things with the dual meet. And, the IHSAA, I think, was kicking around the idea of doing a dual team tournament. We're looking at the winter bulletin right now. We don't see any information on it, so maybe the IHSAA has decided to delay that for a year. But still, 2 years ago, there really were no dual meets at all, and girls were just wrestling for themselves. And I think it was probably a lot like high school swimming or high school track and field where a lot of kids don't know who won when the meet is over, those types of events where you're really only concerned about yourself. And now all of a sudden you've got a lineup. You know that you making weight makes a difference for the team, and you've got to keep track of how you lose, not just whether you win or lose. And I think that's such a cool element that the girls are going to be able to experience this year going forward with a lot more dual meets. And I know Indiana Matt, that we went out of our way to make sure that we had a dual meet ranking for the girls so that they kind of, work their way up and see wins and losses and upsets and that kind of stuff. But, all of that is them adding one more element of the sport that we've loved for decades that now all of a sudden they get to experience.
Yeah, I think dual meets are great for fans, and it's great to do things together as a unit versus just individually. And I think making an emphasis on dual meets is going to force those girls programs to grow. Like you got to cover the weight classes. You got to recruit more girls and find more girls to wrestle. So I think it's a good thing.
And from a recruitment standpoint, for sure, and Coach Curry's talked about this. Coach Sprunger's talked about this. When you're not worried about the dual meet aspect of your season, it makes it a little bit harder to put the time in to recruit guys who are going to fill weight classes.
Yeah.
Recruiting a guy who's going to go 5-25, it doesn't really do you a whole lot of good. But that kid who's 5-25, those 5 matches that you win, those may be the 5 dual meets that you need the most to win. Mm-hmm. And having that full lineup, and that's honestly what it's all about, is getting kids out for the sport and experiencing it with their teammates.
So I was on the Indiana Tech website looking to see how Andrea was doing, and saw there's like 30 girls on that squad, and they're from all over the place, California, everything. But one thing that Dane likes to make the statement that we're probably the first radio station in the country to ever cover a full girls dual meet, and we don't know if that's true or not, but somebody's going to have to prove us wrong. So with this segment coming to the end, let's send it back to studio for a round of commercials, and back with our next guest right after this. You've been listening to High School Wrestling Weekly on WZBD.
When faced with the difficult task of making arrangements for your loved one, many emotions and questions arise. What would they want me to do if they were here? Where is the money coming from? How much should I spend? Do they want burial or cremation? The staff at Haggard, Hershey, and Zelt Funeral Home can help you navigate these tough questions. Make your wishes known and allow us to make sure that your wishes are carried out. Call Ryan Hershey or Eric Zelt at 260-724-7167 to schedule an appointment today.
Renowned around the Midwest for his skills and his creative abilities, Nate Bowers and the team at Bowers Paint Studio in Decatur work with a wide range of clients, from collision repair to custom paint jobs for classic cars and motorcycles. Located on Monroe Street on the west side of Decatur, Bowers is your place for body work too, whether it's getting your ride back on the road or finally getting that classic car, the paint job you've always wanted. Stop by or give Nate a call to put the best in the business to work for you.
Back to Double Eagle Clubhouse Grill for the Hager Hershey Zelt High School Wrestling Weekly, and we're joined by the coach of the Bluffton Tigers, affectionately known by his father as Benji. How you doing, Ben?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Well, except for you don't have a voice. Other than that, you're pretty good, right?
Yeah, it's spotty.
I got a volume knob here. I'll just keep jacking it up here, and if you need a tag team, you get a big guy sitting behind you, come over the rail and can help you, right?
I brought a guest speaker if I just go mute.
Over the rope. Tag, you're in.
That's right.
Now, you guys hosted was it a six-way this weekend? You have 6 teams there?
Yeah, yep.
Tell us a little bit about how you did and how the season started off for you.
We went 4-1. We're a pretty young team, really young team, which surprisingly it was a good start. We would have, could have beat Central Noble. We lost to them 35-45, which one kid, doesn't get pinned. Get a 12-point swing, changes things. But, yeah, it was good. We had Leo, we had Fremont, we had Heritage, Central Noble. Was that 5? Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
And I'm looking at your results here against Central Noble, and it looks like you had 14 guys in the lineup and no forfeits. That's always a good thing to start off the year with.
Yeah. You guys were just talking about that, but, you got a handful of guys that every year that – their job is to make weight. Hopefully they, don't get pinned, or there's some guys that you just want to go out there and compete as best they can.
Now, tell me a little bit about hosting an event like that, a November Super Duel. How much time do you spend trying to replace teams, pick the right teams? You've got some teams in there with some really small squads. I think Heritage had maybe 8 guys there on Saturday. Westdale's a really small school. Fremont, a team that's had some success prior. Central Noble, a program with a pretty good pedigree. What does that look like from a coaching standpoint and sort of working with ADs and trying to get that to sort of have the right mixture?
Tim actually does most of the scheduling. Who's sitting to my left here, but him and Steve do a good job. We just, try to get guys in there to compete. We don't. To me, it's not anything other than just getting mat time, having the guys. It's nice having it at home, our first one, because you always got a few kids that forget to cut their nails or have to cut and wait for the first time. Those freshmen, that's nice to be home, so you have a little more time cut weight. But the group of the teams that we get. They kind of just always come back. We've kind of had them over the years. Because originally we used to go out to Concordia back when I was in school, and we kind of took over that tournament. And some of those teams still come.
So talk a little bit from a scheduling standpoint, Tim. The ACAC duel is really important for you guys, I feel like, as far as not necessarily a midpoint of the year, but sort of a measuring stick as to, okay, are we where we want to be, or are we not quite there yet? You've got the 5 duels that you had this weekend, and it looks like you've got 2 or 3 more duels scheduled between now and then. How do you go about deciding what that looks like, and how often are you looking at changing that up?
We've changed it up a lot over the last couple of years. We had Eastside on the schedule. We missed them for a couple of years. We've got them back. We picked up Alexandria Monroe this year for the first time. And Wayne High School is kind of new. That's one we threw in there that's just kind of close and easy to do.
And we had their new head coach on our show 2 weeks ago, and, it was kind of mind-boggling to us. I think Rex and I looked at each other a couple times like, holy cow, this guy's got a lot of work. I think he took the job, Juwan did 2 weeks before the season started.
I think it was.
And then he mentioned how many guys he had out, combined with how many girls that he had on the team, and I'm like, holy cow, what an opportunity for a new coach to have. You think about new coaches and taking over small programs or programs without a lot of success, and you think of guys who are coaching 7 or 8 guys or 10 guys.
Didn't he say he had like 50 people?
Yeah, like
in the
40
room?
or 50 people between the girls and the boys teams in his room that he was able to work with, and what an opportunity to get started on your coaching career. But that could be a duel for you guys that maybe this year doesn't reap as many benefits, but if he finds success there and keeps you on your schedule, those are the kind of schools that you want to get. You'd love to wrestle a program that is competitive with you that also has 30 or 40 kids in a room.
Yeah, so we have no idea what they're going to look like.
Yeah.
Last year, I think they had 6 kids.
Exactly.
So, and it was just last year we picked them up, and it was just a place filler. We needed a duel. We got them. So yeah, that's great. If they're going to have a full team and a lot of kids to choose from, that's good for everybody.
And I guess I spend a lot of time thinking about schedules and looking at schedules and talking to Coach Myers about schedules and verifying that South Adams and Adams Central have everything in place, because we look at it from such a broadcast standpoint. But I don't think a lot of people realize that there are limitations and rules involving how many weigh-ins you can have, how many points you can have. Every team is allotted 18 points, and typically your duels are worth 1 point. Everything else, for the most part, when you look at the rules, is worth 2 points. And when you wrestle in a conference, that's 2 points that you're taking up right there. And for Belmont and Adams Central and Bluffton and South Adams being involved with conference duels, that's 2 more points. So you're already talking about 4 of your 18 points being gobbled up by something that you have no control over. The other 14 points, you have a carte blanche. You can do whatever you want with them now, because prior to the old duels, or the current duels, I should say, you had the old schedule where you were asked or you were required to schedule everybody else in your conference and eating up all of these points, and now they're wide open.
Yeah, we're really blessed with a good conference. We have a lot of quality teams with, like you said, Adams Central, South Adams, Jay County. So we get a lot of good duels in there. Last year we went to a 10-way at New Haven. That was a good meet for us. We had to drop out of this because of a scheduling conflict this year with the ECIC tournament.
And you guys are at the ECIC this year?
We're at the ECIC.
Okay.
We had Jacob Duncan on last week before last, and he said he's got a pretty decent squad of guys. He got his numbers back up again this year too.
Yeah, that's good. It's always good to see Wells County programs full.
Yeah, and you never want to see teams in your own conference putting 5 or 6 guys out there.
No,
and I know Heritage is
Norwell's got a new coach too.
Yep. Norwell's got a good coach. So
you guys are the senior members now. You guys are the old guys.
In the county, I guess so. Yep.
It ain't saying much, but you are. Right? Hang your hat on it.
And I see that you guys are scheduled to participate in the Bill Kerbal. And I know that when it comes to scheduling, especially for a program like yours with a lot of success in the last couple of years, that team state really makes it difficult, because it's something that you aspire for. There are years when you know you're in. There's years when you're not sure you're in. And there's probably years where you think, well, this isn't going to be the year that we're in. But it's always kind of in the back of your mind, like, hey, maybe we put it all together in those first 3 or 4 weeks, and then maybe we are kind of challenging for it. Like, what does that look like? How do we communicate with the coaches of the place that they're planning on going that weekend? Like, hey, if we get in, we're probably going to drop out. But I also think that now, 12 years in, 13 years into team state, I think for the most part, coaches who are hosting events, especially on that weekend, kind of get the idea that, okay, like our tournament's here. We know we're not going to do anything that's going to just blow up our tournament. But if someone drops out because of team state, we tip our hat to them and we say, go have fun, go compete, whatever. How do you approach that when it comes to scheduling?
New Haven's been really good to us. This is my 6th season with Bluffton, Coach Sprunger. And the couple years that we haven't made it to team state, we've been at Bill Kerbel. So that was easy to plug us back into that. And, I don't envision us going to team state this year, but if we get one of the voting spots, then we'll take a look at that.
And you guys, from what I've discussed with you over the last couple of years, it's something that you guys definitely aspire to and are excited about being, participants in and sort of build your program around it. You can't. I don't know if anybody can truly say that they build their entire program around it because, there are bigger goals out there. But when it comes to a recruitment standpoint, as we were talking about earlier with the girls, when you're trying to get a kid out there to come out for the team and you tell them, hey, the team could use you, not just, hey, you could be a better person if you wrestled. Like, it's twofold in that. It doubles the importance. There's some guys out there, or maybe it's one of your kids' friends who's on the one of your wrestlers' friends who's on the fence about coming out for the team, and you say, listen, we're forfeiting this weight. We're thinking about going to team state. We could be one of the top 5 teams in 1A in the state. We can talk about patches on your letter jacket. We're talking about, whatever it is that kids like. But team state adds that. And I think if we lost that or if we didn't have that, programs like yours would suffer from it.
Yeah, it's great for the kids. I think for us as coaches, it's nice to qualify for that, to earn our way into that, but we don't look at that as much as maybe the kids do. It's a good accomplishment for them, but it's another tournament for us. It doesn't matter too much to me. It is nice to go, though, I will say that.
So we can continue more of this conversation after we take this break. We'll be back with more wrestling talk here on the Hager-Hershey-Zelt High School Wrestling Weekly from the Double Eagle Clubhouse Grill.
Hello, this is Joel from your local hometown Package Liquors. Package Liquors provides the best selection of domestic, import, and craft beers in Zeeland. With locations in Decatur, Monroe, Bern, and Markle, you're always just a short drive away from picking up the perfect last-minute gift or just the right six-pack to watch the game with friends. You're never a stranger when you walk through the doors, and our smiling staff never has a problem giving you a recommendation when you're not sure what it is you need. Stop in at one of our 4 locations and see what hometown service looks like. Package Liquors. It's where your friends shop.
Based out of the Indiana Tech Wrestling Facility, the Warrior Regional Training Center is an elite training center for youth wrestlers, high school wrestlers, and college and senior level athletes. Featuring a college coaching staff with a strong history of developing talent and producing results, Warrior RTC will give any wrestler quality training partners to push them to new levels in the state-of-the-art 25,000 square foot wrestling building. The training is affordable and private training is also available. Put Warrior RTC in your corner this season.
Welcome back once again to the Double Eagle Clubhouse Grill for the Hager-Hershey-Zelt High School Wrestling Weekly, also known as the SHHWW.
I can't keep track of it that way, right?
That's going to be on a shirt this year, Dane, right on the back, so people know what it is.
Well, we want to talk a little bit more about Bluffton wrestling, and of course, one of the guys that will come up immediately in most conversations is Levi Johns. Why don't you guys talk a little bit about the season that you expect from him, what he's done in the off season, what your 5K times are individually compared to his, and anything else that you want to say about Levi.
Levi. Sorry, my voice here. Levi, man, he's just a competitor. He literally goes till he can't, and that's what happened to him at regionals. His body just shut down. I think he would have qualified for state and cross country a couple months ago or a couple weeks ago, and we expect a lot from him. He's a leader on our team. Just always working. He's always working. He's one of those guys that, if you watch him in a cross-country meet, he's probably tripping the first 5 people on the line just to get an edge. So he's tough as nails, and he works hard.
What are some other names that we need to know about your lineup and who's an addition?
We've got Tavin Freeze. He's another senior. Actually, it's just his 3rd year wrestling. He came to us as a sophomore. He was a basketball player. But he went 5-0 Saturday at our duels. Beat a kid I think is ranked in the semi-state. So he had a pretty good day. Parker Barnes also went 5-0. He's a freshman that we had coming in this year. He's benefiting from working with Levi and getting some of that experience. Also beat another good kid from Leo. I think went to semi-state last year. Some other kids. We've got a lot of freshmen. We're rebuilding right now. It's kind of a work in progress this year. I think we've got 11 freshmen on the team. So
awesome. Who else is involved in your middle school program? Who coaches that?
You're looking at them.
Both of you two, and I think that's a lot of things, And I've had a daughter who's been a manager for the Belmont team the last couple of years, and middle school is very much conference oriented. So I don't know if we even see you guys outside of maybe the Adams Central tournament. You guys don't even. I don't think that's it. So I'm not real knowledgeable about some of those things, but I think a lot of people don't realize how many wrestling programs, Bluffton size, Belmont size, Adams Central size, where that like season doesn't stop after February state finals. Like you're still getting ready for your middle school conference tournament and all of those types of things because coaches are hard to find and few and far between, and having to do both, I'm sure, is great for the continuity. But it's also a lot of work for you guys.
So I can't speak too much on middle school. I've kind of stayed away from that, but I've got a little one that's in there now, so I'm sure I'll get more involved in that this year.
But middle school is like the heartbeat of the program, the start of it. Typically, you got the kids club. We do Friday night rivals, and that just introduces them, and hopefully they fall in love. But I mean, constantly, I'm a middle school teacher, so I'm just challenging their manhood, trying to calling moms, letting them wrestle. I mean, if you can talk kids into starting it, then, like Landon Birch, he never wrestled. He didn't start wrestling until he's a 7th grade, I think. Maybe a 6th grader. Wasn't going to. I think he was going to swim. But, every once in a while you get some studs that never done it.
And that's something like Coach Myers here at Belmont for that first match. It was youth night, and he got as many youth wrestlers out there as he could, and brought them out, and that's what you got to do. You got to get those kids introduced to it, get them to fall in love with it before they're in high school, way before they're in high school.
And I think the great thing about middle school wrestling, especially in this area, the middle school wrestling is very much dual-oriented and very team-oriented, and there's very few individual tournaments. And there is a lot of, go out there and don't get pinned, or we really need this pin, and those types of things. And you know how middle school kids are. They can be on their back one second, and all of a sudden they're rolling through, and they're putting another guy on his back. And if you watch those kids, they're into it more than a lot of times the high school teams are on the bench when it comes to a dual meet and getting falls and those types of things. And I agree with you. The heartbeat of a program really is the middle school side of things and getting kids, because let's face it, in most programs the middle school team is bigger than the high school team, and getting kids to come out for that middle school team and to get it to grow and to get them to feed into to staying as 9th graders and giving them opportunities, as we were talking at the very beginning of the show, giving them opportunities to continue to wrestle as JV wrestlers is one of the hardest challenges, I think, for a high school coach, is not only focusing on your 14 guys at the varsity level, but finding ways and coaches and events for you to continue to help those kids grow, rather than just beating them up in practice with the varsity guys day in and day out.
Well, the minute they did the shortened shirts, I bought some from the middle school just because every middle school kid sometimes a little insecure with their body, and they've never seen a singlet before and don't want to get in them, so try to give them no excuses to not do it. So, if we can get them in there, my goal always is to try to get every male in Bluffton to at least do it, whether they're elementary to high school.
Well, we are certainly appreciative of you guys. We're certainly excited about this ACAC season. I know we've been splitting time the last couple of years between the NE8 duels and the ACAC duels, but now that you guys, as a 7-team conference, can get that all in on one day, we will be there on that Saturday for the ACAC duels. It's looking an awful lot like that's going to be the first look that we get at Adams Central and South Adams. So you guys will probably be licking your lips to get a chance at them, not quite down to their weights and where they want to be. And you guys now with some experience here this last weekend, and you guys will have, 10 duels or 8 duels in between?
8.
Yeah, your guys will have 8 matches before Adams Central or maybe even South Adams wrestle one, and that'll certainly be to your advantage. But we look forward to following you guys all the way into January for the ACAC tournament, and then, of course, for the sectional. And I was just looking at this. It looks like our regional has added a new program. I don't know if you guys know anything about Union Modoc, but they are now listed as being one of the teams in that Delta sectional. I know there was some talk about Muncie Burris having a program and being added into there, and I know that they had some middle school success, but not necessarily high school success. But, of course, we love following your guys. We love calling their matches, especially seeing them succeed when they get to the semi-state level and the state level, and we wish you guys all the luck this year.
Yep, thanks. Yep, thank you.
With that, let's send it back to the studio for round of commercials. Back with more High School Wrestling Weekly here on WZBD.
DDD Maintenance and Repair, owned and operated by Shane Reynolds, has your local professionals for heavy-duty truck and diesel engine repair. DDD Maintenance and Repair also offers full-service sand and glass blasting for your surface restoration projects. Whether it's getting your heavy-duty truck and diesel engine running like new or sandblasting your project to look like new, we have a blast renewing the past. Give Shane and the guys a call at 260-223-5442. That's DDD Maintenance and Repair.
Wygand Construction in Fort Wayne is committed to providing quality, value-based construction services, and that commitment begins with our employees. We strive to anticipate and exceed clients' expectations, honor our commitments, and provide for the communities in which we live. If this sounds like the place where you'd like to work, visit our website at Wygand Construction to see our open positions and fill out an application. We want you on our team. Wygand Construction. Trust, well built.
Welcome back to the Hager-Hershey-Zell High School Wrestling Weekly, hosted by the Double Eagle Clubhouse Grill. And I was just saying, I think it's the first time we've seen Ben Frode here. You know, he's got a kid that's wrestling varsity now, and we should see him because, you know, if you're not here, we talk badly about your kids. That's how it works. But we're going to be joined here by Coach McClurg again. And as you were getting off the air during commercial break, you forgot to say something. We had to make sure you got back in. And you said something else you want to talk about? See, you forgot to talk wrestling, but you brought your dad along with you tonight.
Wrestling.
You brought your dad back along with you tonight, and it's his first episode of the Hager-Hershey-Zell High School Wrestling Weekly, and you have to make sure he talks good about us, well about us on the way home.
Yeah, parents came up to see the grandkids this weekend. They still live in Indy, and I was like, we're doing this radio show. My dad loves wrestling, so he tagged along. So
we don't have to twist your arm to come down here. You've been here enough times that you come down and partake of the food, and it's always an easy guest for Wayne to come down.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about what we have coming up here in the next 2 weeks. I know, obviously, we have our broadcast on Tuesday when we head up to Snyder. Should be an interesting duel. I know lots of Belmont fans would grumble under their breath about the last time that Belmont went up to Snyder and wrestled with not a very complete lineup. It
was a circus.
It was not pretty, and then I'm pretty sure Al Capone almost killed somebody.
Mendez.
And it was Cole Mendez, that's right.
Cole Mendez tried to throw him.
And that was a bad choice.
There's one person in the country you don't want to throw, it's Al Capone.
And Belmont lost that duel. And there haven't been many losses to Snyder in the last 20 or 30 years. And but I guess, as we talked about, Kyle and I did on Friday nights, that's what makes dual meets fun. No offense to Coach Lynn, but like Belmont's beaten New Haven 54 times in a row. That doesn't quite breed itself to being a rivalry. And I know when you talk about some coaches and their big rivals, they'll be quick to point out that it's not a rivalry because we've won 20 of the last 21 times. Don't call it a rivalry, but it does help when you wrestle teams that you're competitive with and you can go back and forth. And I know Wawasee, obviously, Belmont's beat them all 3 times now since we started, but the last 2 duels that have been wrestled at Belmont have been ultra competitive, and that's really what you seek when you're setting up a a schedule. And talking to Tim earlier, I don't think a lot of people realize how much work goes into setting up a schedule when you're a wrestling coach, and how much is involved, because you really don't just get a basketball type schedule where you get 25 games and you play everybody once. And for the most part, you can kind of just take your IHSAA map and take, okay, we don't want anybody who's that much smaller than us, and we don't want anybody who's that much bigger than us, and then we'll just play everybody else, the 25 closest schools. That's it. That's the schedule. In wrestling, you don't want to do that. You can't do that. No. And I even had a staff member on Friday at school ask me, Wawasee? Like, what's the point of that? Why would we don't play them in anything? I'm like, oh no, that's a good duel. That's who we need to be wrestling. And you got to go out and find those things.
Yeah. And in wrestling, you gotta. It's tricky because you want to go find tough matches for your individuals, and that's why Belmont will go to the Al Smith tournament over Christmas break. You got to test yourself, but then you got to go find teams that want to wrestle you. That's the other. If you're a good high school team, that's also sometimes it's harder to find people that want to wrestle you because they don't want to get beat 20 out of 21 times or whatever.
Absolutely.
or whatever it is, and so. But yeah, with our college schedule, it's a little trickier because we have like these mandated conference duels you have to do, and then so on the weekends when we try to go find the toughest tournaments and the opens to find the toughest competition, right? That's what you want. You want to get. If you want to be the best, you got to go wrestle the best, right? And so I hope. And you're doing this team state, all the rankings, and so you see that a lot with these teams. Like they try to go find teams.
I always appreciate when they do because one of the worst things about that job is ranking the team who won't wrestle someone who is also ranked or who won't challenge themselves or maybe just they're in a section of the state where there aren't that many teams close to them where they're able to go out and get them.
I thought that the worst part of that job was the pay.
Well, yeah. Hey, I will tell you. I don't know how impressed you are going to be here, but talking about the pay. I do have a membership card now.
Oh no!
Did they spell your name right on the membership card?
So they did spell my name right on the membership card.
We go down and get our plaques. I hung mine on the wall. They misspelled his name. He's in charge of the Hall of Fame. And they misspelled his name.
We won't give him too much of a hard time.
The Felling.
Hey, now I will cycle back to what you said about the Al Smith and going over their Christmas break. I don't know if you are reading Indiana Matt on a daily basis, like my buddy Sean Farrote, but I noticed that Steven Standifer is asking what should they do with the Al Smith next year because Friday and Saturday is the 26th and 27th of December, which would mean that we who are Al Smith diehards would be leaving on Christmas Day and driving for a Christmas Day seating meeting, or whether to have it on a Monday and Tuesday, which would put it on the 29th and the 30th. The 31st is, I think, kind of taboo with the IHSAA. They don't like people having events on that. Or waiting all the way until after New Year's Day and having it on January 2nd and 3rd. I call sacrilege. No way can you wrestle the Al Smith after January 1st. No. There's absolutely no way. That's very interesting to see what they decide to do.
Yeah, I would lean towards
now
the Monday, Tuesday if I was coaching.
But you're a Spartan Classic guy. Let's be honest here. You're a Connorsville guy, are you not? Did you wrestle at Connorsville?
No.
Oh, I thought you did.
I was a competitor. When I took the Roncalli job, we were going to Connorsville for a few years.
Okay.
And then when we could get out of that contractually, we started going to the Mater Dei Classic.
Yeah, and that certainly has grown as a premier event in the winter. Now, Rex likes to brag about his Connorsville Spartan Classic T-shirt
I got a stack of 15 of them at home.
Yeah, we had a good team, and we went out there and we won like 9 or 10 of the weight classes one year, and it's the tournament's not what it used to be. It's like we gotta
when I refereed it, Cathedral, Lawrence North, Lafayette Jeff, there were some big time teams there, and it was better than the Al Smith at the time because the Al Smith had not become as popular.
Yeah.
And then all those people went from south and went north.
Yeah, it's goes in cycles. But yeah, and then people didn't like the Conference tournament because there is no seeding. I mean, it's just blind draw.
That's right.
Paper
They're
brackets.
still etching it in stone as to what goes on there.
But they do have a big gymnasium.
Yeah, no, it's a cool event. I liked going to the event, but yeah, when we had a chance to go to the modern day tournament, we
now
went to that.
Speaking of those tournaments, with the new guidelines, being able to wrestle 6 times instead of 5, do you think that someone out there is going to have the balls to open up a 64-team tournament, a 48-team tournament, to go beyond the scope of a 32-team tournament, like that has basically been the limit? I don't know if there's really any other Indiana high school event that goes beyond 32 teams.
Yeah, well, we see it all the time in college opens every weekend. If you lose early, you'll get matched out on the backside. You only go 6 times, but it doesn't happen in high school because high school tournaments don't even make tournaments that big to run into that problem. So I don't know. I don't know if people will do that or not.
Columbia City's having a girls' tournament with 64 teams in it.
So that's
this weekend, I think, Thanksgiving weekend.
It's probably going to happen unless they pool it somehow.
Yeah, I think they'll pool it.
And pool it and cross. But
yeah, but when you got Pat running a tournament, it can.
She'll have a formula to make it work.
Blaine will just show up and Mom's got it done, and he just let her roll.
He's so spoiled.
So with that, we got one more break here we need to squeeze in. We'll come back with our final thoughts. You've been listening to High School Wrestling Weekly here on WZBD.
Brad Weber proudly supports the WZBD Wrestling Coaches Show. He also supports youth football in Adams County as a board member of the Decatur Football League and president of Belmont Cadet Football, giving our youth the chance to learn the great game of football. Some of the best football players in our area have also been fantastic wrestlers. And that's why famous coaches like Joe Gibbs and John Madden always wanted wrestlers on their team. Find out more about youth football opportunities by giving Brad a call at 452-7045 or email bw@bradweberlaw.com.
The staff at Haggard, Hershey, and Zelt Funeral Home is honored to serve the community we love and live in. Locally owned and operated by Ryan Hershey and Eric Zelt, we understand that each family we serve and each life lived tells a unique story. Our goal is to offer comfort, care, and dignity to all who entrust their loved ones to our care. We are proud to call Adams County our home and look forward to serving you for generations to come.
Welcome back once again to our last segment here on the Haggard Hershey Zelt High School Wrestling Weekly. Coach McClurg is still with us. It's just one of those things. You just come down here Sunday night and talk wrestling. And what more would you rather be doing on a Sunday night than this?
Nothing. I mean, if I wasn't doing this, I'd probably going over watching film from our duel on Friday, and then the results from the weekend and other tournaments. So this is pretty much my life. So I don't know what I would do without
this is
wrestling.
Like dinner and a show here.
That's right. It's great.
Well, Coach, when we talk about this show, we talk about high school wrestling, especially here in Adams County. We talk about guys like Brad Weber, who really wasn't even a wrestler himself. No. He was a football player. But a big supporter of our show, goes out of his way to support our show. And there's people like that all over Adams County, all over Decatur, all over Northeast Indiana who are big supporters. One guy who jumped on with us on WZBD is Josh Book, who went out of his way. He approached me a couple of months ago and said, "Hey, we really appreciate what you guys did with the girls wrestling tournament the last couple of years. I want to support it with my business." And he jumped on as a sponsor. Brad Weber's the same way here locally, a big supporter of Belmont football, of Belmont basketball, and Belmont wrestling, and he's one of our sponsors. And we're here doing a live read because it's not his business. It's not his. It's just him. It's Brad Weber saying, "I support this broadcast and what you guys do," and we're certainly thankful for that. And doing the match on Friday, and I don't know if you were paying attention when I was saying that Rex was off doing football, and it was actually my first true assignment as the lead guy for doing a home wrestling match for Belmont. It was a really, really big honor for me to be able to be in charge of the broadcast and to work with Kyle Lawson. But the crowd was great. The aura was there for an opening night of the season. And I just couldn't be more excited about what's to come here in the next couple weeks for not just Belmont, but for everybody. Once we finally get Adams Central back on the mat, South Adams back on the mat, the Bluffton guys are pumped. They got they went 4-1 this weekend. That's exciting. Heritage had 8 or 9 guys in their lineup, so we're excited.
So I actually was tuned in to the beginning of that, and Dane didn't want to spoil the ambiance of the tournament, and he said, what is more exciting than listening to Crazy Train play as the Belmont Braves run in? And he just jacked the mics up, and him and Kyle just let it roll. And it's like, the roar of the crowd, and, Ozzy playing in the background. And I know Blaine Culp's been here before, and he's talked about teams that, his guys are picking their theme song, and his guys are, we want Crazy Train. He goes, you can't have Crazy Train. That's Belmont's. He said, if you coming up to Belmont's level, he said, maybe you'll get it, but that's Belmont's song. You can't have it. So, I mean, it's tradition. I mean, every school, when you're in high school, you had your traditions. Everybody's got them. But it's one of those things that the hometown rivalry, and we talked to some of these guys that have come up here from other places and said, we would love to have that at our facility. We don't have that. Even Mike Gable, who, we think he's esteemed Mike Gable coach, he said, we can't get that in our town. He said, we'd love to have a radio show talk like he said, I'm so jealous of what you and Dane do just because I wish we had that support behind us in our local community.
Yeah, what you guys do for the sport is awesome, and yeah, it's great. I couldn't believe when I moved up here that they told me, like, there's a weekly radio show about it's called High School Wrestling Weekly, and I said, what? and then I'd heard stories about, I'd been to the Belmont main event tournament back when you guys used to have that event up here, and it was always a cool event. My younger brother wrestled in it when he was at Perry Meridian, and then I went to one home Belmont duel, and it was a couple years ago. I think it was Snyder, Ike Rubel's senior year. We were there. We were trying to recruit Ike and a couple other Belmont guys. We went to watch the event, and it's pretty amazing. I mean, they fill the gym. The community in Adams County loves wrestling, so yeah, it's cool. It's cool. It's different up here.
Now, not only is this program talk about Belmont, but he's booked us a full Adams Central schedule. Yeah. We have a full South Adams schedule, a full Belmont schedule, and then the tournament series. And then you throw girls in. I don't know. We didn't count up. How many nights did we work this year? Like 50?
It's a lot. If the only thing that prevents us from really going full bore like our sponsors would like us
is our wives.
The fact that it's the fact that these coaches continue to schedule dual meets that overlap each other on the same night. Yeah. It's like Adams Central needs to stop wrestling on the same night as Belmont, and South Adams needs to stop wrestling on the same night as Adams Central, because then we would be able to do all of them. But
shouldn't they check with you before they schedule?
I've been advocating for that for a couple of years, but they don't listen to me. What do I know?
Yeah, it's going to be a fun year. I'm biased. We get to see and train a lot of these kids that are on Adams Central's team or South Adams team or Belmont's team, or and there's a lot of good young talent on those teams. Bluffton's team, Levi John Senior year, excited to watch Levi, and so yeah, it's going to be fun to watch. So,
and I would say this, and this was the conversation I had with somebody after the match. After the matches on Saturday, a lot of times we get caught up, especially if we do anything statewide. We talk about the Brownsburgs, the Crown Points, and I love both of their coaches, and I love following their programs and the success that they have. But like learning about guys who are putting in the time in the off season, and even during the seasons of the other sports that they're playing, and knowing that they're going to step onto the mat and that they're going to compete and that they're going to love the sport and that they are going to give their all. I really couldn't care less whether or not they end up being state qualifiers and 23-2 or 13-12. Like, I'm really, really excited for some of these guys that you've been training specifically at Warrior, who are finally getting some varsity experience, whether they're ninth graders and they've been wrestling middle school and we've seen their names on middle school state finals and that kind of thing, or whether they're guys who are sophomores or juniors who were JV the last couple of years and finally getting their spot. Like, those are the guys that you want to watch when you have a dual meet on a Tuesday night. The kid who you really feel like has been putting in the work and the coach has nothing but positive things to say, and they're finally getting their shot, that's the guy that you want to watch, and that's kind of why we do it, I guess.
Yeah, it's fun to watch those stories and watch kids develop, and the sport changes lives. I think wrestling it's the greatest vehicle in the world for self-improvement. So, I mean, and like you were talking about earlier, like, the 5 and 25 guy might be the guy that's going to help you win a dual meet, and maybe he's not that important, but like what the sport can do for him is super important. So,
and we hear coaches say, I hear Coach Tim Myers say it a lot. He needs wrestling more than our wrestling team needs him.
Absolutely.
And those are the kinds of kids that you get excited about. And the more you get involved with your local program, the more you go to your coach or your assistant coach or a parent meeting or whatever and say, hey, how can I help? Then the more you realize who those kids are and the struggles that they're going through and the success that they have. We had a kid Saturday at the JV meet at Jay County who hit a couple of headlocks and got 2 wins. I don't know if he won 2 matches all of last year. Mm-hmm. And just the smile on his face, his mom was there, his sister was there, and he immediately went over to him and was like, did you see that? And he was super, super excited. Like, those are the moments that make you appreciate getting up at 5 a.m. on a Saturday morning, taking a bus an hour and a half away and watching some JV wrestling, because those kids really do enjoy the success that they have.
Yeah. It's there's nothing like getting your hand raised in a wrestling match. It's a great feeling, and it's hard for people to understand it unless you've done it, or been close to someone that has went through struggles and found a way to get their hand raised in a wrestling match. So it's it's great. I'm excited to watch a lot of these kids in the area this year. I feel like a lot of young guys that people maybe haven't heard about are gonna break through this year.
Well, Coach,
in this area, so.
As always, we thank you for coming down, and we appreciate your time you put in. The Bluffton guys, we appreciate them coming over. We appreciate Steve Rouse for running aboard back to the studio, and for everybody who tunes in and listens to us. This is a great program that we've really appreciated being part of for the past 6 years. And with that, I'd like to thank Steve Rouse for running aboard. And with that, we'll call it quits for another episode of the Hager Hershey High School Wrestling Weekly on WZBD.